This is Keith Williams. Welcome to 5 Watt World. We're interested in helping you get the most music from the least gear. I recently came across this interview with Mark Knopfler in Guitarist Magazine, where he says that he's feeling like he needs to take some guitar lessons. I loved this. He said, "I'd like to have a guitar teacher come around on a Tuesday morning or something and ring the bell and not set me a load of theory, but just talk about a little passage or a little sequence and leave it with me and go through it with me the next week. That's exciting to me because I've never had a teacher like that. I don't want to start learning some shit that I'm not interested in, but there's lots and lots of other stuff I'd still love to get into." I started thinking, so if Knopfler needs to take some guitar lessons, then don't we? Because let's face it, as John from Cincinnati used to say,
some things I know and some things I don't.
I've been playing guitar for 45 years, and I find that lessons at wide intervals always jumpstart something in my playing. Let me tell you a story. In 1987, I was working in admissions at Ithaca College, and I decided it was time to take some jazz guitar lessons. I called the head of the jazz department, Steve Brown, but he said he was too busy, but he had a new faculty member that could probably work with me. And so he handed me over to this guy. And Rick Beato became my jazz guitar teacher. Now widely known on YouTube, then he just finished his master's degree at New England Conservatory and was a junior faculty member in the jazz department at IC. Well, to be more accurate, it was actually this guy. And by way of fair play, I guess, this was me then. We met in his office, and he asked me to outline what it was that I wanted to learn, what I wanted to be able to do. I explained my background and what I wanted to accomplish. He listened. Then he asked for a piece of staff paper, which he told me to bring to the lesson, and started writing rapidly in pencil. He made sure I could play through the chords to get through a 2-5-1, and then handed me the handwritten changes to All the Things You Are, and sent me home to practice. Therein followed an intense year of lessons with Rick. He was gigging around town as well, and he'd call me up on the bandstand frequently. He'd say, "Hypes, you know the changes to Meth's Unity Village, right? Come on up and play it with me on the break." I'd try to wave him off, but he'd have none of it. "Don't worry, you can just run the changes. You don't need to solo," he'd say. So I would, and after he'd stated the melody, and you can see this coming, he'd turn to me and quietly say, "Take it." It wasn't pretty, but it was an experience. Of course, I didn't realize it at the time, but taking lessons with others over the years has helped me understand that Rick was a great teacher for 3 reasons. First, a good guitar teacher should listen more than they talk or play. They need to teach you. And to do that, they should listen to you play. Listen to you talk about your playing, your challenges, your ambitions, what you have trouble with, and what you think you do well. I've lost track of the number of friends that took lessons with the best player in town. And when I asked them what they were working on, they'd say, "Well, he mostly just plays through the things I ask him about, but doesn't really explain much." And this isn't a small thing. Listening seems to be rapidly becoming a lost art. So as an aside, if the teacher listening is key, then YouTube can't be the answer. The machine isn't listening, and you can talk to the screen, but the screen won't answer. And if it does, you probably have a different problem. You know what? I have an all-access subscription to TrueFire, and I'll watch those as a treat to myself. Jeff McErlane, Robin Ford, Andy Timmons. So much fun. But often they play something that they don't explain. And I'm sitting there going, "Yeah, but what about this other thing? How'd you do that?" And of course, in a live lesson, that would be the point. What's being presented to the student that the student doesn't understand, and how to get past that lack of understanding. It's this back and forth that makes live lessons vital. So the second thing is being there. For this to work, you need to be in the room together. A large portion of communication is nonverbal, and this is as true in music as it is in speech. The teacher needs to see you play and needs to hear you play. There are layers to playing that are intellectual, but there are also the mechanical, and being in the same room is essential for working on that. Try this fingering, or, "Right, but you can also play that here." That's the sort of stuff that pops up. Don't get me wrong, I've learned things about playing online, and maybe Skype lessons are a diluted version of what I'm talking about, but it doesn't seem to get into my playing in the same way that integrating a live lesson does. And lastly, stay motivated. Having to practice for next week's lesson is a great motivator. The old axiom of "you get what you pay for" applies. You value things that cost you something, and the investment brings with it an accountability to yourself to get something out of them. In addition, it really helps me to have something that helps me see my progress. So as an aid to my practice, I've started tracking the time with the same app on my phone that I use to track yoga, meditation, and exercise. It's called Insight Timer, and it was created to track meditation, but it has different types, and so I've just assigned one to guitar practice. I think they labeled it as breathing, which is about right for me. It helps me see just how much time I've spent this week really practicing, It keeps me from just telling myself that I'm a guitar player, and it quantifies how much that's really true. I find that turning the timer on also reminds me that in that moment, I'm not just playing guitar, I'm working on my guitar playing. At the end of the week, I can look at the amount I've actually practiced, and it isn't subjective, it's real data. And so I've just started to take another batch of lessons, based on the guitar curriculum they use at Berklee, actually. Finally trying to sort out my theory chops to a usable level for blues and jazz playing. So maybe we can agree that live lessons are the way to do this right. And knowledge, and hence lessons, is always a better investment than gear. We hope new gear will improve our playing, but we know that learning new things will. No money for lessons? Look around. I bet you can ID a couple of pedals that are gathering dust and could be flipped for a couple $100s. You could then roll into some lessons. And if you're not careful, you'll probably become a better guitarist into the bargain. If you liked the video, hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that too. Until next time, thanks for being a part of the 5 Watt world.